Y'all, I'm so excited to be with you. I've been working on this presentation for a lot, and I even woke up early this morning to keep working on it. Today, I want you to quickly get out a piece of paper and a pencil. In the future, I'll have a workbook ready for you, but it's been crazy. So I'm just trying to do life. But next month, we'll have a workbook that you can download and fill in. But for today, just grab a pen and a piece of paper or a little notebook to write in, because this is a workshop and I've wanted to do this for months, but I've been too scared. And finally my husband's like, just do it. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it. So I'm super excited to be with you. And so what we're going to do is this will be interactive. It is a very small group, which I'm very grateful for, because there was, with this particular software, and I might have to switch to something like StreamYard or Zoom or something, but with this particular software, I'm limited on how many people can come in. And so, we're just a little group today, which I'm excited about, because we're going to be sharing via chat. And so again, like I said, I might switch to another platform where I can actually see people, because right now I just see a screen and your names and the chat. So the first thing I want to do is, I saw up in the chat, Ashley, you've got 3 kids, 6, 4, and 2. And then Jenna, you're in Colorado, 9 and 11. Jenna, where in Colorado are you? Can you still hear me? Oh, you're in the Springs too. Awesome. Me too. Okay. And then Ashley, what part of Texas are you in? Yay. Okay. Perfect. You're in Houston. Okay. So today we're going to be talking about preparing for the fall and what we can do. We're going to have 5 sections that we're going to go over. And so let's just go ahead and get started. There will be reflection time, so we'll go over a section, and then I want to have you do some writing and journaling. Like I said, next month I'll have a workbook for y'all. This month I was just trying to get everything together to make sure, get my ducks in a row technology-wise, which seems to be the bane of my existence. Okay, so let me go ahead and move this forward. Whoops, here we go. Preparing for the fall. And this is the time, this is the season. This is time. July is when everyone's getting ready for school. Now, have y'all homeschooled before? Like what year? Oh, Lakia, hello, welcome. Okay, Lakia, this is your first year homeschooling your daughter that's 8. I know, because you and I have talked. Ashley and Jenna, how long have y'all been homeschooling? Are you brand new, or are you, have you been doing it for a little bit? I'll just let you type it in. Okay, it's not showing up. Anyway, I'll keep going because I'm not seeing. Oh, there it is. Oh, that's right. Yes, you had 2 boys. Oh my gosh, it's been 2 years already, Jenna. Brand new, oldest in kindergarten, age 5, but we're halfway through some kindergarten curriculum. Okay, and it looks like my chat is just a little bit stalling out. Okay, so what I want to do first. So y'all are all fairly new homeschoolers. Jenna, you've been doing it for a couple years. The first thing as we're preparing for the fall, first of all, your homeschool doesn't have to look exactly the same as it did last year, and most of the time it's not going to. There's always going to be adjustment that we do as moms where we go, that didn't work. I think I want to switch things up, which the beautiful thing about homeschooling is we can do that. And so every year I ask myself the same question. I start with the end. I'm like, what do I want to get out of this year? Like, what is my end goal for my kids and my family by the end of this year? And ultimately, I do have like a long-term goal for my family. Like my husband and I have talked about, and like these are the things that we want to instill in our children. These are the things that we want that we feel like when they leave the house that they need to know. Of course, there's always going to be gaps in education. That's everybody. There's always stuff that we need to learn. But then I ask myself each summer, like, what do I want next year to look like? And so we want to begin with the end in mind. And so if we think about if you think about Alice in Wonderland, I love this quote where she asked the Cheshire Cat, "Would you tell me, please, which way I had to go from here?" said Alice. "That depends a good deal on where you want to get to," said the cat. "I don't care much," said Alice. "Then it doesn't matter which way you go," said the cat. And so sometimes I'll see homeschool moms that like don't really have a vision in mind of what they want the year to look like. And then they get to the end of the year and they feel this loss, like, oh my gosh, we didn't do anything. And part of that is because they didn't have a vision in the first place. And so I want you to think about what at the end of the year would you want that to look like? So I want you to pretend that you and I are at lunch. Maybe we're at my favorite place in the whole world, which is Glenery Castle in Colorado Springs, and we're having tea together. And it's beautiful, and the castle's beautiful, and beautiful music is playing. And pretend like it's a year from now, we're sitting at Glenery Castle, you and me, and I ask you, like, how was this past year? And you tell me, you say, oh my gosh, this past year was the most amazing year with my kids ever. And I'm like, wow, what happened to make it the most amazing year? And so I want to take 3 to 5 minutes and have you write down what would need to happen to make this year with your kids the most beautiful. Like, what things would have to happen? Now, this is something when I was hiring for small businesses and different companies, this is a question that I would regularly ask employees or prospective employees, because it enabled me to see, like, what do they need to do in order for them to feel successful at a company, and would that company fulfill those expectations for that person? But the same thing I found when I ask myself that question every summertime for the fall, it enables me to do some serious self-reflection. So I want you to ask yourself that question. Like, pretend we're sitting and I asked you this question. And you're like, it was the most amazing year. It's next year. And you're like, it's the most amazing year. So I'm going to time it. We'll do 5 minutes. And I want you to journal out what things would have to happen, or that you'd want to happen to be able to say that with all your heart. So I'm going to go ahead and mute myself for just a second, and go ahead and give you time. Which I'm also, while you're doing that, going to look for my phone, because that's where I have my music, and it disappeared. I think my daughter took it, actually, because she's recording something. So 5 minutes, here we go. And then when we come back, I want you to prepare to share in the chat. Okay. And Jenna, that's so nice. Thank you. It's sincerely my pleasure. This is something that I really love. Like, I love helping moms not feel scared to homeschool, because I really do feel like our society's losing our kids and losing their hearts, and it's time that we take them back. So if I can help moms take their hearts back, I will do everything in my power. So thank you. Okay, let's jump in. For your family, what would you say in 1 year that you did that it would make the most wonderful year? What would you say? I'll give you a little bit of time to type it in. And by the way, y'all, there's no right or wrong, so that you know. While you're typing, because I see some people are typing, for me, One of the things that Kara and I have talked about, she's 9, she's my caboose. And she said, Mom, I am not a good speller, which is true. She's not. She always forgets the vowels. And she reads really well. But spelling is one of her issues. And she and I have talked about it. And she's like, I want to be a really good speller by the end of this year. And I also want to be into 5th grade math, which we use CTC online. And I said, okay, so for her, those 2 things are really important for her. But for me, I want to see her writing improve. Like, and these are like not necessarily social or integrity things, but I want to see her writing improve a little bit. I would like to see her spelling improve as well, because that's something that's important to her. But I also really want her to start doing bigger chapter books, which she also wants. And I also want to have her start taking a little bit more initiative. She gets really shy around people, even though she's a chatterbox at home. And so something for her is I really, really, really want her to take more initiative and not be quite as shy as she currently is. And that she talks, that she answers people's questions without staring at them for a long time when they ask her something. Because right now people ask her questions and she'll just go like this. And so that's something that that's something that I really, really want to see. With Jacob, he's been doing an internship with cabinetry, and I really want to see him progress in that. He wants to get to the point that he can get to use the machines, because right now he's too little to use the machines, but he wants to do the machines. Okay, here we go. Find a way to get Heidi more interested in reading and not getting easily frustrated with mistakes. Oh, that's a big one. Going on local trips like state parks, museum, farms, etc. We're going to talk about that here in just a second. Reading aloud more than just bedtime, getting the kids into chores. My friend, that is a lifelong challenge. Lots of fun and adventures, field trips, camping. Actually, make a schedule that we work on together and incorporate things that we want to do and learn. I love it. Okay, and Lakia, I'll let you keep typing if you choose to type. You don't have to answer, but I love to hear it. Okay, so that's going to become, whatever you wrote down is going to become your guide, right? That's one thing. Field trips, y'all. Last year, my whole goal was to do more field trips, and then halfway through the year, there was a squirrel that I was like, oh, we need to chase that squirrel. And so we stopped doing field trips, and I still kick myself because I'm like, oh, that was one of my guideposts, was doing field trips every week, and I stopped halfway through the year. Not okay. So this becomes a guide. Oh, there it is. Lakia, my girl is the same, kind of an introvert around people, and at home a chatterbox, go on hikes, hit museums, go to plays, learn my girl's style of learning, get a better grasp on math since school skills were very confusing for her. I love it. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do then is I want you to take time sometime this week to interview your kids. And it doesn't have to be very long. It could be 5 minutes. It could be 10 minutes. But sit down with each child individually, and I want you to ask them what some of their current interests are. And if they're like, I don't know, just look at what they want to look up on YouTube if they're a little bit older and they like watching YouTube. What are they watching on YouTube that's not Minecraft or Minecraft hacks? Or, are they looking up things like, right now Jacob has been looking up lucid dreaming. And I'm like, why? And he's like, because I saw a short on it and now I want to learn about it. I'm like, okay. But that helps for older kids, is like, what are they wanting to look up on YouTube? Places that they want to go. And that's if they're stuck and they're like, I don't know what I want to learn about. Places that they want to go to. Now, Kara tells me regularly she wants to go to Paris. And so she'll be like, can we go to Paris this weekend? And every single time I'm like, I just like to remind you that Paris is really far away and very expensive. So no, still a no. Let's talk about places around town. And I'll give them ideas like, oh, we could go here, or we could go here, or here's all these different places we could go. So give them some ideas if they don't have any, but of ideas around town that you can do daycations or staycations. Hobbies and talents. What are they natural? Oh, I put that twice. What are they naturally already good at, and then what hobbies are they really interested in that they keep bugging you about. I don't spend a lot of money on hobbies until I see that the child is really invested in that thing and is spending a lot of time. Like, I just don't go out and buy a guitar because I didn't go out and buy a guitar because Joshua said that he was interested in guitar. He actually bought a guitar himself when he was 13 from his brother, who I bought a guitar for at Christmas one year, and then he never touched it. And so Joshua bought his guitar. And it wasn't until like 6 months in that I saw he was trying to practice and play every day that I finally went and got him lessons, because I wanted to make sure, like, I'm not putting money into brief passions. So find out what their interests, places they want to go, their hobbies, their talents, because that's going to guide us a little bit on the portions of their education that is self-directed. Okay, so, whoops. I did that a little early, that reflection. Okay. So that's something that you can talk with your kids about as you're planning this coming year. Okay. Number 2, the next thing that you're going to do is you've got to calendar it. Now, how many of you have heard of Jessie Isler? He's married to Blake. Oh, I can't remember her name. She's the one who created Spanx. I can't remember her name. Anyway, they're married to each other, and Jessie Isler created a calendar. It's called the Big ASS calendar. And it's this huge calendar. And he's like, you have to, and it's the whole year all on one page. And I actually bought it, put it in my hallway, and it has a dry erase marker. And he said, put in the big events, because if you don't put in the big events and the other things that you want, those things won't happen. And so we're going to talk about calendaring just a little bit here. I've referred to this in the podcast before. Stephen Covey, who wrote 7 Basic Habits of Highly Effective People, gave an analogy about life. And he had 2 jars, and he had a big jar, and there was rocks and pebbles and sand. And he would have people come up and demonstrate, like, can you make all of this fit into the jar? And it didn't look like it could fit. Well, inevitably, people would try different ways. And as you guessed it, nothing would fit unless, like, not everything would fit, as you see on the left-hand side of the picture, if you put the sand in first or if you put the pebbles in first. You have to put the rocks in first. And I see that with homeschooling, if we don't put the big rocks in, if we don't calendar those things and then stick to the calendar, then they don't happen. I have wanted to go on a camping trip with my family all year long, and I didn't put it on the calendar. And now our calendar's filled up, and now I'm kicking myself. And I told my husband, like, we are going to put this on the calendar before October, before it starts to freeze, because I want to go camping. And so now, usually with the rocks, they say, what are the very most important things, and then they're the mandatory things, and then the middle rocks are the not as important things, and then the like the pebbles are the not as important, and then the sand is not important at all. I don't see it that way with homeschooling. I'm like, the rocks are like, what are the big things that are gonna be on the calendar? You've already paid for them, or you're planning on paying for them, and they're on a weekly basis, and you've got to put them in the schedule because you have to work around those things. It might be lessons. It might be your enrichment activity or your co-op that you go to weekly, your family vacation. So think about what those rocks are. And those are things that are like, I've paid for these things, or we have committed to these things. So you want to put those on your calendar first, because they're the big rocks, right? Then the second thing, the pebbles, are the smaller things that are as important, but you may not have paid for them, and they're you can do it around the big rocks. Like, I can do quiet reading time with my kids, can do quiet reading time after enrichment activities. But I wouldn't like forego the enrichment activity altogether, like that I've paid for so that they could do quiet reading time. Does that make sense? Like, they're the next thing that I fill in, and they're important, right? We want them in the jar. So I want you to think about, like, the pebbles might be quiet reading time, your family read alouds, your writing, your math, time outside, free play, weekly, monthly field trips. And we're going to put those things on the calendar. And we'll do that in a second with how we do daily rhythms and daily schedules. But those are the next thing, the field trips that you want to do, the camping trips. Jenna, you mentioned you want to do adventure camping and field trips. And Ashley, you mentioned that you wanted to go to state parks and museums and farms. So you want to put those things on the calendar as well. Those are the next things that are going to be put on the calendar. And then finally, the sand is like those extra things that you're like, oh, we need to cover these things at some point. But we don't necessarily want to do them every day or every week. They might be once a month. Maybe they are a couple times a week, but you're only going to be doing it for 3 months. So the sand would be the other subjects and the other things that are not quite as important. They're still important, right? You still want them in the jar, but they're not as essential as like those big rocks, or that, yeah, we've got to hit reading, writing, and math. We do need to hit some science, but if we didn't do science 3 days a week, if we only did, 3 units of science throughout the year, that's probably fine, right? So decide what the sand is for yourself. And then I'm just going to take 3 minutes, and I want you to jot down, make 3 columns, and do what are your major rocks that you do not want to miss out on, that you need to put on the calendar this week. I'm going to challenge you to put them on the calendar this week. What are your pebbles? And what's your sand? And so I'm going to give you 3 minutes to jot that down, and then be prepared to share again. Okay. Let's hear. What were some of your rocks? Okay, rocks. Reading daily for you, Lakia. Monthly field trips. Pebbles are math, history, sand, declutter, try new sports. I'll tell you, I'm still in the middle of decluttering. Oh my gosh. I love it. Okay. Who else? Thank you, Lakia. Oh, you had art there too. Yeah, that's a super important one. For me, right now, my kids are involved in each has an enrichment program that they're involved in, and then Jacob does cabinet making, and he has loved cabinet making. And so he's like, I don't ever want to stop doing that. Well, he says that now. He might change his mind, but he's been doing that for 6 months, and he loves it. And he's the youngest one there, but he loves it. But their enrichment programs I'm super excited about. So I'm like, okay, I have to work around the days that they're enrichment programs. And this is the first year that they're all going to be on a different day, which makes scheduling the daily schedule a bit tricky. Okay, Ashley, you said weekly co-op, gymnastics trips, overnight or day trips are your big rocks. Pebbles, math, ELA, reading aloud, and sand, science, and art. And then Jenna, rocks, enrichment once a week, children's museum visits, planning a camping trip. I love it. Okay, so this week your challenge is to actually put those on your calendar, in your phone, and on a calendar that everyone can see, so that we know when the rocks are, when, and then when the pebbles and when the sand are. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to move on is to the daily rhythm and the daily schedule. Now, this gets tricky. When they were little, when my kids were younger, it was a little bit easier because, and this is what's on the screen is like an example. Just in case I ever put this online, I don't want people actually knowing my kids' schedule. But like my teenagers have religious study classes in the mornings, 2 days a week, and the problem is it's super early, and so my daily schedule shifts and switches every day based on what day it is. So what I found is I have more of a rhythm than a strict schedule. When I very first started homeschooling, I was really like, I think I mentioned, if you've listened to the first episode of the podcast, where I was like, okay, from this time to this time, we're going to do this. And then from this time to this time, we're going to do this, just like school. Now I don't have a strict schedule, and I don't expect, like with my kids, they have their checklist each day that they get done, that we put it in their calendar. And I'll talk about this in a few minutes, but I get a calendar for each of them, and then we write the checklist together, and then each day they check those things off. But that way I can see, okay, these days they're going to be, this child's going to be at enrichment all day, but the things before they go to enrichment or before they go to their early morning class, they do need to get their chores done, and they do need to get breakfast and get something in their bodies. And I try as much as I can to have breakfast together. It doesn't always happen. Sometimes kids stay up late, and then they wake up late, and then it gets everyone in a tizzy. But what we look, but I try to get like a general schedule with, not necessarily with times, because what I found is, especially when we moved more towards an unschooling, eclectic unschooling, my kids would want to get things like math done quickly and their writing done quickly. And so I'd say, just do a page of writing. And then Jacob would be like, oh, can I spend more time on animation? And so he would often add to his schedule also different things that he was interested in, that he was working on. But at least we have like a general, like, this is our schedule. It's mostly tentative. Like, it can change. Like it's I guess I should say it's mostly concrete, but there's still some amount of flexibility if we do need to switch things up, or if a child's having a particularly rough day, or if, somebody gets hurt and we have to go to the doctor or whatever. I generally try to schedule like appointments with doctors in the afternoon before everyone else gets out from school. But so that I can keep that morning time sacred for the family to get stuff done. But that it doesn't always happen, but it happens most of the time. My friend works in the morning. So I have a good friend who homeschools and she works in the morning. And so she has her kids do as much as they can independently in the morning. And then, but the bulk of their work is in the afternoon when she's able to be with them. And so those who can be independent do a little bit in the morning and they help with the younger kids. But then in the afternoon when she's with them, that's when she really dives into the homeschooling for the things that she needs to get into. So their mornings are far more flexible, whereas their afternoons are a little bit more structured, versus us, who our mornings are more structured and our afternoons are more flexible. And so based on whatever your work schedule is, if you work outside the home or if you work in the home, or if you're a homemaker and you know, wow, I've got kids who really don't do well if they don't get a lot of sleep and they naturally wake up at this time. You're going to create a general schedule that best fits your family. And if you find that something's not working, guess what? You can change it. But I found that having like just a general week outline that I can look at helps me. I am not naturally an organized person. It's very difficult for me. I tend to be more creative, but I still need some structure and I have to see some of that structure. Again, if you notice, like there's not times on anything except for the things that are absolutely required. Like Kara has her arts program from 9 to 3, right? That's not negotiable. I drop her off and then I pick her up. And so during that time, if I need to help Jacob after I've dropped her off, I've got that flexibility. So what I want to do now with y'all is to create your ideal morning schedule or afternoon schedule. Like, let's say you work in the mornings, your ideal morning schedule, and with the understanding that your different days might look differently based on if they have an enrichment program. And by the way, the days that my kids have enrichment programs, generally I don't make them do math or writing. I just have them do quiet reading time, because they get home and they're so tired, just like when they were in public school. They would get home so exhausted, and it was a lot for them to take on several more hours of homework, and they would do it, and then I missed the best part of them. So when the days that they do go to enrichment programs, we do quiet reading time, read aloud, and that they're good for their academics, right? That's just what our family does. You could do something different, but let's give you a few minutes and just do a quick rough outline of a schedule for the week of what you would like it to look like, what your morning and what your week would look like. We got 3 minutes. Okay, let's hear it. What does your schedule look like? Perfect. Lakia, you say 9 a.m. feed the pups, language art, writing, trip, math, trip, recess, take pups for a walk. Yeah, otherwise they'll be in the house. Or mine will anyway. Handwriting. I love it. Love it. Pressed enter by accident. No worries, no worries. Duolingo. Yeah, Katie was studying, my daughter who's 17 was studying Japanese via Duolingo. I love it. Chores, choice. Well, I love it. It's good to be, Lakia, it's good to be ambitious, and because you've got to start from some place. And you might find, okay, so this works and this doesn't. And you might find it like works great for us. And then you might be like, oh, wait, this isn't working quite as I thought. And so the great thing is you can adjust as you need to, but as long as you've got like an idea of kind of what you want it to look like, that's the important key. Jenna, yeah, I'm impressed with your organization. I'm a rough notes kind of person too, as well, Jenna. Like you should see, these were my initial notes for that, and then we have these. Anyway, and then these are my final notes for today that I end up with. So I write rough notes as well. Yeah, no, definitely not a note alone. While you're typing, I've got a question while some of you are typing, and this is totally off topic, but if I changed my podcast title, would anybody care? Like, would it stop? Like, would people stop listening if I changed my podcast title? That's my question. Started the day with a morning walk. Oh, Jenna, I am with you. Like, morning walks are my saving grace. One of my kids asked if they could come once, and I'm like, later. But for right now, it's just me. Unless there's an emergency and you need to talk, then yes. But if you're just like, hey, I need the time by myself. The podcast title is when you look up a podcast on like Spotify or on iTunes, it's the picture that you see. And right now it's like a school slash in a home, and they're really bright colors. And it says school to homeschool at the top. And then at the bottom in yellow, it says Janae Daniels. I honestly think it's kind of ugly, but anyway, I kind of wish I had done something different. So I was wondering, would anyone care? Like, would it stop anyone from listening to my podcast if my podcast title was different? Yeah, so sorry, it's just coming through. My chat is a little bit behind, so other thoughts. And if you're like, I don't want to type it out, just say, I've got notes written, that's fine too. I understand. Thank you, Jenna. I might change it because I'm like, it's so ugly and it's not pretty. And I'm a visual aesthetic person. Like I love beauty. Okay. You want to get back into audiobooks again. We used to do that a lot more. So Jenna, here is a little trick. We do sometimes if I know that we're going to be in the car a lot during a day, I utilize audiobooks in the car. That's right now we're almost done with all of the Grimm's fairy tales and most of the Hans Christian Andersen fairy tales. We go between the two, and we've done it all summer, and we have only listened in the car because we've driven a lot more than I wanted to this summer. And so we get read alouds in as we drive with audiobooks. Okay, Ashley, I'm working parents and my husband is a stay-at-home dad. We're still working on getting more homeschooling activities during the day because I do majority on evenings and weekends, which is perfectly fine. Your ideal schedule: church, library, curriculum, read aloud, handwriting, educational videos, gymnastics, library story time, curriculum, read aloud, reading aloud, curriculum, read aloud, co-op, free time, Saturday and Sundays trips, getting outdoors, science. I love it. Okay. Let's continue on because we only have a few minutes left, and we're going to go over. So now what I want you to do is actually take time, because I only gave you 3 minutes, which is not much time, but I wanted you to at least start brainstorming and getting something on paper, because now your challenge will be, write everything on the big calendar, right? Get your rocks and your pebbles and everything on the big calendar, and then plan out a rough week calendar when you have more time to really sit and think about it, digest it. Okay, let's talk about book lists, because this I found over the last 3 years has become super duper important for our family. Every year I choose 12 books that I for sure want to read with my kids for read aloud. And then each of my children, I work with them to pick 12 books that they want to read, and they do one a month. And sometimes they'll go faster and we'll get through some books faster. And sometimes it takes us longer to get through other books. And same with the kids' books. Like Jacob picked out one book that he really wanted to read, the Marvelous Mr. Fox by Roald Dahl. I think that's the name of it. And he read that in a day. And I was like, okay, now we're moving on to your next book. And he actually ended up reading like 20 books this year as opposed to just 12. Some books took him like 2 months, and then other books he was able to get through quickly. And so I do that with read aloud. Like I really want to hit these read aloud books. Sometimes I'll choose a book that I've heard great things about, and we're 4 chapters in and the kids are bored stiff and I'm bored stiff. Then I'll switch it and I won't finish the book. But generally I'm like, okay, these are the books that I really would love to hit. Sometimes they have to do with topics that we're interested in. Sometimes they just look like great books. And so I want you to start thinking about like, what read aloud books do you want to read? And of course, this is by in no means like the only books that you can read. You could read more than that. Jacob likes to do quiet reading time. We do read aloud, but then he told me, he's like, I love when you snuggle and you read to me, just you and me. And so I also started picking books for each of the children that I read to them, and they're not reading aloud by themselves, or they're not doing quiet reading time by themselves. It's me reading to them just because they like to be close, they like to snuggle, and they like for me to tickle their face while I read. You don't have to do that, but it's been something that's really bonded all of my kids. And even Katie will listen to an audiobook, and then I'll work on a craft project or embroidery with her or different things, and it means something to them when it's just them and I. We don't do it every day, but we try to do it often. Okay, so I want you to think of what 12 books would you have for, and again, this list might take you a little bit of time to go, okay, what do we want to read aloud? And then talk with the kids. What are some of the books that they would like to read for quiet reading time? For younger kids that are not into chapter books, or their reading proficiency isn't there yet, picture books are great. And of course, you're going to have far more than 12. As they get a little bit older, like 5 to 8, the simple books like Frog and Toad, Little Bear. I just discovered the Sophie Mouse series for little girls, and they're little tiny chapter books, and they're big words. Big font and short chapters that are like 2 pages maybe. Those are great for emerging readers. And then as they get a little bit older, I found that if you have a child who really hates reading, it's usually because they're reading books that are too advanced for them, where they struggle with the decoding of the words. And so go down in reading level books. You know, they have the beginner books that have like the 1 on them, like Danny the Dinosaur. So drop down. If you find that they're really frustrated with reading, oftentimes it's because we think that they should be at a higher reading level than they might actually be. They might struggle with decoding the words. They might struggle with the comprehension. They might struggle stringing the sentences together. And so just drop down in books. I learned that with Jacob. When he was in 4th grade, when I was in 4th grade, I read A Castle in the Attic, and I loved it. So I knew Jacob was a good reader, and I assumed that he would get it and not have any problems with it. But then when we actually, he started to read, Berenstain Bears, yes. When he started reading A Castle in the Attic, he wouldn't read. And I'd say, okay, you've got, 20 minutes of quiet reading time. And he would just sit there. And then you'd get annoyed. And I was like, what's the matter? And he's like, it's hard. So I said, well, let me read with you. And I learned very quickly that even though his teachers were saying that he was advanced in reading and he could actually read the words, he wasn't able to process or comprehend all of the sentences together. So when I realized that, I'm like, okay, let's drop back down and read Frog and Toad. And then he loved it because it was much simpler, and it was short chapters, simpler words, bigger fonts, and then he loved it. And then we slowly advanced, and now he's reading probably at a 10th grade level. I mean, he's 13, and anyway, so if they struggle reading, it's usually not because they don't like reading, it's because it's too hard. So drop down in levels for them and read with them to see, okay, where are they? Oh, they're not understanding. I got it. Okay. So 12 books per child for the year. That's a baseline to go with. You can actually do whatever you want, but that's what we do in my family. Okay, let's go on. I'm going to skip the reflection for this because this is something you could do at the library, or the readaloudrevival.com has book lists. So does Reshelving Alexandria. Let me write those in the chat. They have book lists. My favorite is Read Aloud Revival. Sometimes I'll see book lists, and then when I actually read some of the books, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is against what I believe religiously or politically, and this is way advanced for my kids. And so I do like the Read Aloud Revival list because they are more tame, and I don't worry about like having to look up those books for my kids to see what's in them. I trust her. Whereas we went to the library yesterday because my kids finished the library reading program, and so my older daughter got a book, and she does this on her own now. She's 17, and she will check and see if a book is spicy or if there's a political agenda in the book. And so she and I there was a list of a bunch of books that they could choose from. So she and I were going through, and she's like, oh, this one has an agenda. Oh, why do they have this one on here? This is kind of spicy. This is probably not appropriate for teenagers. I'm like, interesting. But Read Aloud Revival is pretty safe. Reshelving Alexandria, it's mostly okay. And then they make you pay for a membership. So I've never paid for a membership, but Read Aloud Revival is a good one if you want to look up different book lists for kids with different ages. Okay. So let's move on. Curriculum and supplies. Okay. This is where it gets spicy. We only have a few minutes left, so I'll speed through this a little bit. I want you to think of curriculums like you would the three little bears. Now, or the Goldilocks and the three bears. There is kind of a barometer, if you will, or something that you need to think about. If you buy curriculums that are all totally hands-on with you, and you have one child, but you choose 10 curriculums for science and math and reading and all the things, and you have to facilitate with them the whole time, you're never going to have any time, and that creates a very stressful parent. If you have them do only independent work, sometimes they'll get frustrated, especially if they're younger, because they don't, it might be too much for them. Right? Even like a 13, 14-year-old, if you're like, here, go do this stuff and do it all on your own, they get overwhelmed, they get flustered. Oftentimes they still need you, and doing some parts of curriculum with them is what binds a relationship. And so we want to be somewhere in the middle. Like the happy mom and close relationship is, you might have some curriculums or a curriculum that you have to help them with heavily, and then another curriculum that they can do independently, and then you do read alouds together. That's the most ideal thing, when you can get it in the middle. So for example, I've been doing this last year. I did Brave Writer with my kids for language arts and writing. And it's very hands-on as a mom of what I need to have them do and sit with them. And I had Kara do online CTC math while I did language arts with Jacob. And then I had Jacob do online when I was working with Kara, and he did math online, CTC, and then he also did the Tuttle Twins Academy. I ended up paying for the whole subscription for Tuttle Twins Academy to learn civics, and then he and I would talk about what he learned for math and what he went over with civics and government. And then we would read all together for history, and actually we're going to be doing a Revolutionary War unit study for the whole year, or American Revolution this whole year for unit study as a family. But that enabled me to facilitate for Kara when Jacob was doing independent work, and then we'd switch. And so as you're choosing curriculums, you want to make sure that you are not the only one doing the curriculum with them all the time, that there is some that they can do independent of you. Maybe you get a handwriting book that they could practice letters or write paragraphs or whatever. So you've got to keep that in mind as you're looking at curriculums, if you so choose to use curriculums. The other thing is, you don't want to have curriculums for every subject. You will lose your brain. I learned this the hard way, and the more parents I've talked to, it's the same. Don't have too many curriculums. It's safest to stick to reading, writing, and math. And then beyond that, again, you can bring in unit studies with science, or maybe you get a curriculum for science, but you only do it a few months out of the year, or it's not an everyday thing. It's a once a week thing. Same with history. Otherwise, you'll find that if you have too many subjects, or if they're too hands-on for you, you will get burned out so fast, and so will the kids, actually, and that's not fun. So you want to do less, but do it well, okay? And so that's important. Just do less, but do it well. So make sure you hit the essentials. Can they read? Can they write? Can they do math up to decimals and percents? If they want to keep going, or you want to keep going, or your state requires it, great. And then anything that's optional, you might have a curriculum here and there. I actually was really concerned our first year about science, and I ended up dropping our whole science curriculum altogether. And then my kids found mysteryscience.com, which does 5-minute lessons. And my littles were like, oh, this is amazing. And they watched it, and then we discuss it, and there we go. Check that box. And my older kids, neither of whom love science, started doing watching Professor Dave Explains, which he gets political sometimes. So I'm like, but a lot of his stuff, he'll do short little science lessons talking about genetics or physics. He has whole playlists, and that's more for high school and college age. And the other thing I started doing is I outsource science. Jacob goes to an enrichment program that is engineering and science based, and Kara goes to one that has a lot of science in it. So I'm like, okay, your science is done, so we don't have to do experiments at home. Sometimes we still do with cooking, but okay. And then let's talk about supplies for just a second. Y'all do not need to spend $1 million on supplies. You'll need a calendar. You might need a calendar for each child. This is what we do. This is actually how you can see. Here's every day I write the kids' list on this calendar, and then they check it off. And then I've got my what do you call it? Accountability is done. So I have my records right here for each child, has their own calendar. If you don't want to get a calendar for each child, or if you're like, I don't want to spend the money, get a spiral notebook or a composition book. And then every day you just write the date, and then you make a checklist for them to do. And then they can do the things that they can do independently while you're working with the other kids, and they have their list in front of them. Jacob now, I put the rough list up, and then he writes the rest. And he's old enough to do that. Katie does her own list every day. She's 17. She's graduating this year. I check in with her, but she mostly does it on her own. Kara, I have to write out the list, and then they'll add stuff. So Jacob, I always put cabinet making for him the days that he goes, but then he likes to add, and he's like, I am working on making this project that I'm thinking about and making. So he'll put that on his list as well. So you'll need a spiral notebook for each child, a composition book. All my kids have a reading, writing composition book. I pretty much do everything. So they have they have their calendar or spiral notebook, and then they have their composition book that's separate for writing. I would use it. I used to use it for math when we did a not online curriculum. I keep a folder for each child to store stuff that they might get from their enrichment program. Like Kara did archery, and so she wanted to keep her archery papers, and there's some art stuff in there. And then a ream of paper is always amazing. Your chosen curriculums, computer if they need it, your library card, and then good supplies. Like I no longer waste money on Crayola. Now, if my kids were little, I would spend the money on washable markers or things like that. But now that Kara is 9.5, we buy Prismacolors because she does a lot of art. So I spend the money on more expensive art supplies, and I don't go school supply shopping every year except to get the notebook and the folder and some pencils or glue sticks occasionally. But I only replenish when we run out. And y'all, I was spending $1,000 a year on the stupid school supply list that the kids' schools would give me that were like, this subject has to have a red notebook that is 3-pronged. And now I'm like, I bought some dry erase markers for our big calendar, and that cost me like $6. So school supplies are done. And I bought so many our first year that I have plenty of these at home already. But I do spend money on really good supplies. Jacob was like, Mom, I'm working on this woodworking project. I need some wood. I'll help pay for it. And so that is a school supply for us. So that's my lecture on school supplies. You don't need to spend $1 million. And thank heavens we don't have a list of 1 million things we have to get like they do in school. Okay. And with that, I was going to say, what curriculums do you want to use? What school supplies? Because we're over time, and I'm so sorry, but thank you for being so gracious. I'm going to let you work on that on your own. Any questions regarding those things? Of anything that we've talked about today? What questions do you have before we log off today? Any questions or any thoughts as far as next month we're going to do talking about a workshop on unit studies. Again, I'm going to have a workbook for you instead of just having you write it on paper. But we're going to be talking about unit studies. Are there any topics that you'd love to see for the third Wednesday workshop? I'd love to hear. No questions. Oh, you are so welcome, Jenna. Okay. If there's no questions, next month, it's going to be unit studies is going to be our topic for next month. Oh, wait. Screen time. Okay. Let's talk about screen time for half a second. I have a child that is addicted to screens, and he knows it and I know it, and we have discussed it. And so we have a rule that he is not allowed to be on screens until it used to be 3 p.m., but now it's 4 p.m. any given day for consumption purposes. Like he can't be on, actually this whole summer, he's not been allowed to play video games. Like I locked all the video games up. So no one's been playing video games this whole summer. Same with Minecraft. But I believe in screen limits because of how it affects the brain. And he's my only child who really struggles with screen time. So I put pretty tight limits on his screen time, which he appreciates. And I try to get him out as much as possible. Now, the caveat is if he can watch YouTube where I am, if it's to create something not video game related, like he'll watch cooking videos or different things, and then he'll try to make something. He's allowed to watch YouTube for that reason. But if he's consuming, then he doesn't get time until 4 p.m. to consume. And even then he gets a couple hours and I'm like, dinner is ready and you're done for the night. And then I will let him watch movies, Friday nights and a couple nights a week. They're like, can we watch a movie at summertime? So I'm a little bit more lax on the screens during the summer. But even then I'm like, dude, you have to get off. And still he's not allowed to be on screens till the afternoon, even in the summertime. But that's how we deal with screens is, are you using YouTube as a tool to create, or are you using it to be a consumer? Because if you're going to be a consumer, the answer is no. And you can wait till 4 p.m. So that's what we do with screen limits in the Daniels house. Oh, you are welcome. I'm so proud of you guys, and I'm proud that you've taken your power back as parents. Anyway, so it is my pleasure. And if there's ever anything I can do, let me know. In the meantime, if you're interested, I made these die-cut stickers. I'll show them to you. This is paying homage to my hometown of Austin, Texas. And then I've got this little, we went from school to homeschool, and homeschoolers don't co-parent with the government, which is a little bit political. But if you would love, I would love to send you a little packet of stickers, of these 3 stickers. And if you want them, just email your name and address to me and I'll put them in the mail for you. And just send it to the school to homeschool 1@gmail.com. Let me type it in the message if you'd like the stickers. Oops, let me type it. Here we go. Okay, that is the email address. You can see it. You are so welcome. And just send me your mailing address and I'll put these in the mail for you because I thought they were super cute and I put them on my water bottle. Anyway, with that, y'all have a great, great day and keep me posted on how you're doing, and we will see you next month. We'll see ya. If you enjoyed today's workshop, you can join us every 3rd Wednesday for a free workshop. We do it live and it is interactive. So if you'd like to join us, be sure that you register. The link will be below, or you can go to schooltohomeschool.com and register there. Space is limited, so you do need to register. We will see you next 3rd Wednesday.